The moment the work crews walked into Frogmore Cottage, this story stopped being about a house. It became about a warning, a message, a statement so loud that it could be heard all the way from California to the gates of Windsor. Because according to reports, the very home once presented as Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's royal sanctuary is now being stripped apart piece by piece. Not repaired, not refreshed, not preserved, erased, and if that doesn't send chills through the entire Sussex saga, nothing will.
Final traces of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the British royal family are being erased, and this is far more significant than just the destruction of their former home.
No matter how much they try to portray themselves as pseudo-royals, and I think you can see quite clearly on the part of the Duke of Sussex an attempt to try to open up an avenue to return to the fold.
Charles has made it very clear that he wants Harry back. You know, we saw it in Harry's book. Don't make my life a misery, but don't make my final years a misery, boy.
Think about that for a second. Frogmore Cottage was once supposed to represent a fresh chapter, a private refuge, a place where Harry and Meghan could build a life while still remaining connected to the institution they claimed they wanted to modernize. But now, the property sits like an abandoned monument to a relationship that exploded in public. And what makes this story even more shocking is the detail that refuses to go away. Prince Andrew, a man whose own position within the royal family has been hanging by a thread for years, reportedly looked at Frogmore and wanted absolutely nothing to do with it. That detail hangs in the air like smoke, because if even Andrew viewed the cottage as untouchable, what exactly has Frogmore become behind palace walls? The official explanations only make the mystery deeper. The cottage has reportedly remained empty, silent, unused, and now workers are inside, changing it once again, but not in the way many expected.
Seems as it's been revealed through The Sun that assessments are being made of the property to see if it can be split yet again into either multiple residences, and basically to erase every single trace of Harry and Meghan on the property. And that is a really fascinating revelation.
That word matters. Erase. Because when institutions erase something, they are not simply moving furniture around. They are removing reminders. They are deleting footprints. They are rewriting the physical landscape itself. And that is where the questions begin multiplying. Why spend money reversing changes that were already completed? Why dismantle renovations that cost millions? Why undo decisions that had once been approved at the highest levels?
Huge blow up, a big fight around Harry's plans for summer return to the UK, including spending time at Balmoral, potentially, and reconnecting with the king.
The details are almost impossible to ignore. The expensive upgrades, the customized spaces, the carefully designed features, all of it now reportedly being removed, reversed, or rebuilt into something completely different. Suddenly, Frogmore is no longer the Sussex home. It is being transformed back into something that existed before Harry and Meghan ever arrived. And that transformation speaks volumes.
And of course, there was a lot of criticism about what Harry and Meghan, let's say, did. You know, they had to add a yoga room, a 5,000-pound copper tub, and all these sorts of things because Soho House, of course, was involved. I still am absolutely flummoxed by Meghan Markle's obsession with Soho House. I feel like I need to stay there one time and maybe, just maybe, I will understand, but I doubt it. It's just a place to lay your head. I guess, and hang out. And then obviously Harry and Meghan left the
because nobody accidentally forgets a property worth millions. Nobody casually spends fresh money undoing previous renovations. Every decision requires signatures. Every budget requires approval. Every change requires someone somewhere saying yes, which means somebody looked at Frogmore and decided the future of that building did not include preserving the Sussex chapter. That is where the story becomes uncomfortable, because houses often reflect the people who lived inside them. And when a house is systematically stripped of those traces, observers inevitably begin wondering whether the target is really the building at all.
Harry and Meghan Markle are being erased from the history of Frogmore.
Suddenly, Frogmore starts looking less like real estate and more like symbolism, a physical representation of a relationship that has collapsed beyond repair, a reminder of promises made and broken, a reminder of a dramatic departure that shook the monarchy to its core. And then comes the question nobody inside royal circles seems eager to answer.
Actually, the house was actually subdivided into multiple sections because it was actually a residence for multiple staff members. So there was a process undertaken to redo the property, make it go from a multiple family residence to a single family residence. And of course, this was to the tune of millions of pounds. Some of those structural changes, these sorts of things, I'm sure were needed to upkeep it.
Why is nobody touching it? Why does every road seem to lead away from Frogmore instead of toward it? Why does the cottage feel less like a property and more like a monument people are trying to forget? Because the answer may have nothing to do with bricks, walls, plumbing, or architecture. It may have everything to do with what Frogmore represents, the final physical connection between Harry and the institution he left behind. And while Frogmore is being dismantled, another drama is unfolding thousands of miles away, one involving money, reputation, and a growing sense of desperation that critics believe is impossible to hide anymore.
There's so much you could talk about with Frogmore. Obviously, it was the home that Queen Elizabeth II gave to Harry and Meghan for their wedding. Now, gave is a very, let's say, in some ways misleading. It was sort of lent to them officially, unofficially. So how it works in the British monarchy is that there's a series of properties that belong to what is known as the Crown Estate. And the monarch, whoever that happens to be, can give some of those residences to members of the royal family, royal staffers, as a, let's say, a thank you for their long period of service and these sorts of things. And of course, Frogmore Cottage fell under that.
The fairy tale version says Harry misses home. The emotional version says he misses family. But skeptics have begun asking a much harsher question. What if the longing for Britain is not being driven by nostalgia at all? What if it is being driven by necessity? Because look at the timing. The business ventures that were supposed to replace royal life have faced criticism, setbacks, and endless scrutiny. Every launch is examined. Every product is mocked. Every announcement becomes another battleground. And nowhere is that more visible than the growing conversation surrounding Meghan's commercial projects. What was once presented as independence now faces relentless questions about sustainability. And critics are not being subtle. The reaction has been brutal. The internet has dissected every product, every marketing strategy, every rollout. What should have been luxury branding became a public debate about relevance. And that debate has fueled an even bigger theory. What if far more money was invested into these ventures than anyone realized? What if expectations were built around sales numbers that never materialized? What if the glossy image being presented publicly looks very different from the financial reality unfolding privately? Those questions have become impossible to avoid, because behind every headline about candles, jam, matches, and lifestyle branding sits a deeper concern: sustainability, longevity, survival. And as those concerns grow louder, another possibility begins emerging, a possibility that royal watchers find fascinating. What if Frogmore is not merely the story of a house being erased? What if it is the opening chapter in a much larger story about Harry's future? And that is where the story becomes explosive. Because the closer you look at Harry's situation, the more it begins to resemble a man standing in the middle of a bridge that is collapsing from both directions. Behind him sits California, the life he fought so hard to build. Ahead of him sits Britain, the world he publicly rejected but seemingly cannot fully let go of. And caught between those two worlds is a question that nobody can answer. Where does Harry actually belong now? The rumors surrounding a possible return have only intensified the speculation. Some insist there are people quietly working behind the scenes trying to soften public opinion. Others believe powerful figures are testing reactions before any larger move is attempted. Whatever the truth may be, the public response has been immediate and fierce. Every discussion about security, every discussion about royal privileges, every discussion about reconciliation seems to ignite the same argument. People remember the interviews, they remember the accusations, they remember the documentaries and the memoirs, and many have made it crystal clear that forgiveness is not arriving as quickly as some expected. The issue of security sits right at the center of that battle, because security is not simply about bodyguards. Security represents access. Access means presence. Presence means influence. And influence means relevance. That is why the debate has become so emotionally charged. To supporters, it is about family. To critics, it is about consequences. And that clash grows louder every single month. Meanwhile, reports of tension inside Harry and Meghan's own household continue generating headlines. Whether every detail is accurate or not, the narrative being pushed is unmistakable. Harry allegedly looks backward. Meghan allegedly looks forward. Harry allegedly sees unfinished business in Britain. Meghan allegedly sees no reason to revisit a chapter she considers closed. And if those competing visions are truly pulling against each other, then the strain becomes easy to understand. The reports surrounding summer plans only added fuel to the fire. Stories began circulating that Harry hoped for meaningful family connections, opportunities for his children to spend time with relatives, and moments that could potentially rebuild bridges. Then came claims that those hopes collided with resistance from multiple directions. According to the speculation, the reaction was anything but calm. Suddenly, the conversation was no longer about vacations or family gatherings. It became about loyalty, identity, future direction. Because when one person wants to reconnect with their past and another wants to move further away from it, the disagreement reaches far beyond travel plans. It touches the foundation of the entire relationship. At the same time, Meghan's public appearances continued attracting intense scrutiny. Events that were supposed to project influence instead became targets for critics who questioned attendance, impact, and relevance. Every photograph was analyzed. Every speech was dissected. Every partnership was debated. And what emerged from all of it was a growing perception that the powerful machinery once supporting the Sussex brand no longer exists. That may be the most important detail of all, because royal life came with infrastructure, advisors, organizers, strategists, entire teams dedicated to preventing mistakes before they happen. Without that machinery, every decision becomes riskier. Every appearance becomes more vulnerable. Every controversy becomes harder to contain. And then there is the biggest obstacle of all, the obstacle that appears again and again whenever discussions about Harry's future emerge: Prince William. Because while King Charles is often portrayed as hopeful about reconciliation, William is consistently described as something very different. Firm, unmoved, uncompromising, many observers believe the future king has already made his position known, and that position reportedly leaves very little room for negotiation. If true, that creates an enormous problem for anyone imagining a smooth royal comeback, which brings us back to Frogmore Cottage, the empty house, the stripped walls, the renovations being reversed, the physical symbol of a royal chapter that appears to be disappearing piece by piece. Maybe that is why the image resonates so strongly, because it mirrors the larger story unfolding around Harry himself, a man trying to find a way forward while doors continue closing behind him. And that is why this saga feels far from over. The future remains uncertain. The family divisions remain unresolved. The public remains deeply divided. The questions keep multiplying while the answers remain hidden behind palace gates and California walls. But one thing seems impossible to ignore. Frogmore Cottage may have started as a house, yet it has become something much bigger, a symbol of exile, regret, and a battle over the future that is still raging. And if the past few years have taught us anything, it is that the next chapter of this story may be even more dramatic than the last.